Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to hypnocoaching, spirituality, and the hypnotic arts and sciences generally. If you'd like to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free newsletter, Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Today I want to attempt an answer to a question I get a lot in my role as a Unitarian Universalist clergy person. Because mine is a liberal denomination that doesn't require anyone to subscribe to a specific creed, Unitarian Universalists are expected to work out their own theology and ethics. Our congregations therefore have people of every spiritual path imaginable. Now, for myself, I am distressingly old-fashioned, tied to the Judeo-Christian tradition with a special emphasis on the Enlightenment values of freedom, reason, and tolerance. But in one of our congregations, you'll meet all sorts of people. I find I enjoy the richer brew that comes from many different and competing opinions. Trained as a philosopher, I probably enjoy debating things more than is, strictly speaking, healthy for me. But all this is a way of saying I know lots of people who practice divination, which is what the academic world calls fortune telling. I know people who love tarot cards, astrology, runes, oracle decks, the I Ching, and a long list of other oracular devices. Therefore, I often get the question, do you think these things work? So let me come clean. Strictly speaking, I do not think these things work in the sense that I don't believe it's possible to foretell the future. But that's not the same thing as saying that these things don't have a value, because I think they do have a value. It's just that the value isn't in fortune telling. Let me explain. First, why I think fortune telling is not possible. Simply, I don't think the future can be foretold because the future hasn't happened yet. This comes out of my long spiritual practice of mindfulness meditation. When you spend a lot of time focusing your mind on the present moment and not letting it wander to the past or speculations about the future, something kind of happens to you. I think most people go about their lives with depression or sadness about the past and worry or anxiety about the future. But in the present moment, there is neither sadness nor worry. There is only now, and it changes one. That preeminence given to the present moment is powerful. Physicists tell us that the very base level of reality, things are actually indeterminate. They call it the quantum foam. Everything exists as a potential. But as time encounters that potential in the present moment, the potentiality collapses and a specific reality comes to exist. The classic mind experiment on this is called Schrodinger's Cat. And if you've ever taken a class on subatomic physics, you were taught about Schrodinger's cat. Edwin Schrödinger published this in 1935. The idea is that you imagine you have a closed box with a flask of poison, and there's a cat in the box. Also in the box is a Geiger counter that can detect radioactivity and some sort of radioactive substance. Now, it's entirely random if an atom in the radioactive source would decay and release radiation or not. If it does, the Geiger counter detects it and the flask of poison is broken, killing the cat. If an atom in the source does not decay, well then nothing changes. and the cat survives. The upshot of this is that unless you open the box and see what has happened, you cannot know if the cat is alive or dead. In terms of possibility, the cat could be said to be in a state between those possibilities. However, once you look, you cause those possibilities to collapse, and then, and only then, do you know if you have a live cat or not. Now, I'm a cat lover. I don't like this mind game. But the point is that reality, the future, is not fixed. Everything that could exist exists in a state of potential. And it isn't until the present moment arrives and the potential ends that reality is determined. So you can't foretell the future because the future hasn't happened yet. It's just a huge set of potentiality. Like I said, you may detect trends, you may be able to compute odds, but that's not the same as claiming that you know the fact of what's going to happen. Because the present moment is what determines what is real. This is also why time machines probably can't exist, and visitors from the future can't come back here to visit us in time, because there can be no visitors from the future, science fiction movies and novels notwithstanding, because the future doesn't actually exist until the present moment occurs. Now, all that said, I do not think that spending time with oracles like tarot cards, astrology, and so on is time wasted. And the reason I say this has to do with the way human consciousness works. We humans get into habit and routine in our ways of thinking and behavior, and the older we get, the more set in our ways we become. The result is that when we consider our lives to some degree, we perceive what we think is real. If you think your job is secure, you may not notice the subtle signs that there's trouble at the company. If you believe that no politician would ever do something against his or her oath of office, you may resist understanding that a particular politician may have done exactly that. There are even paintings where you look at the painting and see one thing, but then on closer reflection, you'll see all sorts of other things and illusions in the paintings that your expectation did not allow you to see that at first. Well, life is like that too. I believe that all of us are presented with numerous opportunities for self-improvement, success, achievement, and happiness. But often these things go unnoticed because we're not expecting to discover them. As an example, here's a painting by the Ukrainian artist Oleg Shublak. At first glance, it's a pastoral scene, but if you look more closely, you can see a hidden face of a man with a mustache looking to the left. Here's the painting. Kind of neat, isn't it? You see the scene, and then if you look closely, you'll see the portrait of the man's face. You don't see that at first because you weren't expecting to see it. So there's a value in using things like divination tools, not because they foretell the future, but because they force you to think about what is going on in a possibly different way from your habits. You know what you think is going on in your life, but then you are presented with an ambiguous symbol or set of symbols, and you try to make them relevant to what's happening. In doing that, you may actually be moved to understand the situation around you in a different way. You may perceive something that habit and routine didn't let you see. You might think about things differently and find some new way to project your will onto the world. Now, you could do this using other things as well. I once saw a pack of creativity cards intended only to provide prompts for creative thinking. And there are cards like the thematic apperception test, the Rorschach ink blots. They would all work for this purpose. Human thinking tends to go in ruts. And as one wag put it, what is a rut but a grave with the ends knocked out? Anything that gets you thinking in a new way about what's going on around you is good. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject, and I'd like to invite you to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or my Patreon channel. Stay well and stay safe.